Well, a little bit of excitement after lunch, keep you awake, because I'm sure everybody got their fill. Hi, my name is David Britt. I am the Science and Technology Director for the defense sector at Mantech. My background is I was a reconnaissance aviator for the Navy for 25 years. And cybersecurity was something that really came to fruition during my time, because when I started, there was not such a term, but when I finished, certainly it touched everything that we did. And I wanted to put together a little bit of a discussion here on why autonomy of cybersecurity and insider threat activities is very, very important to our customers, our clients, and to the federal government and DoD. So I've invited here JD Jack and our own CISO at Mantech, Paul Beckman. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. JD Jack, and as Mr. Tuba mentioned, I also came from the government. We were actually academy rivals back in the day. I think we graduated right about the same time too, Naval Academy in West Point. After that, I was an aviator for about 10 years, and then I went into a human intelligence field with the government, and then I got out, and I've been with Mandiant and FireEye for 7 years. I ran the public sector for Mandiant, and then we got acquired by Google, and we are building an incredible, robust cybersecurity capability there at Google. So that's my story.
Keep the theme going. My name is Paul Beckman. Prior to joining Mantech, I've been at Mantech for about almost 2 years now, but prior to joining Mantech, I spent about 15 years as a senior executive over at the Department of Homeland Security. My last position there was the CISO of the department.
Well, thanks, guys. And as you can see, I am the only one representing in school colors today, so I have some blue and gold on, just to point that out there, JD. But so I wanted to start this session because autonomy is the theme of this cybersecurity discussion. I recently watched a documentary about how AI should be applied in practical use cases, and I think that is something that maybe gets lost when we start talking about AI and ML. Everybody thinks a very elegant use case is how it should be applied. But really, this documentary really drove some ideas home to me, and it was how AI is being used in food production. Simply taking an optical scan device and having it select literally the bad apple to put in into a basket. Or there was a very interesting sled that they pulled over crops that burned weeds with lasers, and it did it in very, very quick fashion. So it's the automation of those mundane tasks that allow the farmers to now be more creative with their resources, push their labor to things that needed to be done that you actually need human labor to do. And that's how I wanted to frame this discussion, was using autonomy to take some of those tasks in your security enterprise. And Paul, you start us off and how we at Mantech are looking at our own internal processes and how we're going to weave automation in for our cybersecurity. How we're going to use that.
Sure. I think that documentary that you mentioned, Tuba, is germane to the conversation, right? Because that's really at the heart of it all when you start talking about automation, at least from the onset, right? Is being able to take those remedial tasks, those repetitive tasks, and get those automated so that you can buy some more time and runway for your analysts to do what you really need them to do, right? So when you look across the tasks, the day-to-day tasks of a SOC analyst, I'm guesstimating that about 90% of it can be automated. It is repetitive. We're talking about putting in blocks based on threat intelligence, removing malware, cleaning up privacy spills, things along those nature. And when you look at the steps involved in addressing those incidents, yes, they are very repetitive and clear candidates for automation. And the reason why that's important is, those repetitive tasks consume so much of my analyst time, my precious analyst time, very expensive man hours we're talking about here. And it's just so much more effective and efficient when you can automate those repetitive tasks, which I guesstimate again to be 90% of their day-to-day tasks to do, and free them up on that 10% really important stuff that I need my analysts doing, which is searching for that advanced persistent threat, doing the advanced hunting to try to reduce the dwell time that these advanced persistent actors are performing on our networks. So the only way that I can get them to do that 10% very important work is to remove that 90%. Noise isn't the right word, but tasks that can be done in an automated fashion.
So, automation, being able to implement that utility in our enterprise is one thing, but what challenges are you seeing in our own enterprise implementing those automated tasks or those processes or those applications?
Let me talk about the challenges in general that kind of drive to the need to automate and to use artificial intelligence kinds of technologies. So when I look across the universe now, right, and I consider the modern day network and the modern day application. First, consider the modern day network, right? We are so decentralized now. We are so far away from where we were about 10 or 15 years ago. It's the complexity of the modern day network is just exponentially grown bigger year after year over the last 10 years. When I consider the DNA of a modern day application, right, one of them is that they are interconnected like never before, right? So they are interconnected to everything. The client-server model has been thrown away. It's no longer one connection. It's many connections. The second characteristic of a modern-day application is it's how quickly it evolves, right? Any security attestation I put on an application today is going to be stale a week from now just because of how quickly these things evolve. And the final characteristic, and probably the biggest driver to this need for automation, is just they are log-generating monsters, right? These modern-day applications put so much traffic on the network, they are effectively creating this fog of war for my analysts, right? The signal-to-noise ratio has been blown into the stratosphere to the point where humans are no longer capable of finding that needle in the haystack, right? I'm actually charging my analysts to now find that needle in a sea of needles, and it's simply not something that a carbon-based life form can do, right? So we have to bring in these technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning to be able to separate that wheat from the chaff, create these high-confidence alert channels, meaning that when I get an alert out of this, I know that it's not a false positive. I know it's not going to be a red herring that's going to waste my analyst's precious time. It's an alert that I have to do something about. And it's only through these kinds of technologies like AIML that enable us to be that effective and efficient security analysts in that operations center.
So what I'm hearing, the theme of that is volume of complexity. I hear a lot of that in your statement there. And JD, I was wondering if you might talk a little bit about how you can help us walk through that process of automating those steps for us and reducing the complexity as we proceed through a lot of volume of information.
Yeah, so everything that Paul mentioned is a great concern to us as well. And we hear it every time we go and visit with a government customer or even in the enterprise world. Getting talent that is utilized properly, that feels fulfilled, is something that is not happening when they are doing those tier one tasks. So I couldn't agree more. And then from the Mandiant side, when we started looking at artificial intelligence and we started applying it, and Google has been applying it now since about 2012, putting it into workspace, putting it into their processes, it really is powerful. However, from a Mandiant security perspective, you put AI in the hands of a very mature, lethal cyber actor, and it could be very detrimental to any organization. You think about when we used to watch attackers, like you'd see Russians come into the network. They would breach, then they would pause, and they would assess where they're going. Then they would move, and then they would pause. And then they would prioritize, and then they would anchor in, figure out where the novel items are inside this network that they want to get to, and they would move there. And they would set up their command and control channel and do all that. All of that took time. In the human world, it took time. In the machine speed world, it does not take any time at all. You think about all of that happening at machine speed with all that prioritization already made. It's already there, and it just moves seamlessly, boom, 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 boom. It knows where to go, knows how to get there. It's making decisions faster than we can make decisions. And if we don't automate at the same speed of the attacker, we're going to be in trouble. So the whole thing we're building is, we call it an autonomous cybersecurity cycle. So you have the ability to identify an attack, and there's no human involved in this process. Identify attack on the periphery of the network. Then immediately you start querying other endpoints, other email ingestion points, other network sensors. Start querying for, have they seen all of that, all of those indicators? And then you query virus total, query the Mandiant threat intel holdings, identify what should be prioritized as bad and what you can really push off to later. And you stack rank. And then you map it to the MITRE attack framework, and then you send it into a SIM. And that point, and you don't even have to send it to a SIM. You can do this from a separated model of identifying and doing analysis in a distributed way. And all of this is still done at machine speed. There has been no human person involved at this point. And then you take it to the next level when you have a conviction and you know you need to take action. You've already shut down certain nodes. You've already taken certain things offline. You've sent the machine has sent emails to everybody that needs to be notified with indicators. I mean, this is pretty powerful. And then you have your analyst who feels like, now I am empowered. Now I am doing something that is really important, and I have all this data in front of me. That's when I think we're going to be utilizing our talent the best way possible, which is very, very important in the government. We're going to be operating at a speed that the attacker is at or better than the attacker. And we have the ways to bring a disparate set of sensors and tools together so quickly, and we can really help change the paradigm of the kind of the cybersecurity dilemma that we're facing right now. So that's the way I see it, and but it ties really along with just what Paul was mentioning.
So from what I'm hearing, it's a lot like when we used to collect intelligence and surveillance information, and we would reduce that for the decision maker. We wouldn't give them the whole 14 hours on station time full motion video. We'd give them the picture of the thing, for example. That was the decision point. So it's really about being able to shape that decision so much quicker for your analysts to take actions. But a lot of those actions may be automated. What are like some typical metrics that you might be involved with doing that? I mean, Paul, you can certainly answer this as well.
Well, certainly from the security operations side, the most obvious ones, it will significantly reduce, right? Your mean time to respond, your mean time to detect. It certainly just streamlines all of those mean times when you're talking about incident response, right? And those are my two biggest ones that I really need to hit to reduce that dwell time that keeps me up at night. That mean time to detect, how fast can I detect that bad guy on my network, and then how quickly can I respond and eradicate them. And automation obviously gives me that capability to shave off a lot of time there.
Okay. Those are all actually very, very good points. We've got just a few seconds left here, and I thought, hey, I'll pass the mic and we can go down the aisle here for some last comments.
Yeah, so also, we have to work very closely together, security companies, IT companies. We've got to be able to take AI, share it in secure modules, and then innovate and get it out there into the open space, trusted partners, and innovate. And that's really what we're building, and I think most of the leading AI companies are doing the same thing. We build modules of AI that are building blocks, generative AI building blocks that you partners go out and innovate on. And then we share, and we, as an industry, we innovate and get better. And that's what we have to do. We have to really look at this as a concerted team fight. And that's the way we're looking at it, and I hope everybody else is as well.
The one parting thought that I just wanted to impart everyone with is why I, as a CISO, chose Google's Chronicle SIM solution. We are a Google Chronicle shop, and I think it's important to convey why we did that. And a lot of reasons, right? Speed of Google, who better to be able to index volumes and mountains of data and be able to query against that at Google speed. But the single biggest factor for me was their cost model, right? And I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but they are a flat rate all you can eat, all you can drink, log ingestion-based model, as opposed to an ingestion-based model, whereas the more logs that you send your SIM, the more it's going to cost you. Looking at you, Splunk, looking at you, Microsoft. The problem when you get into these ingestion-based models invariably forces you to start pruning the amount of logs that you're feeding your SIM, because it becomes cost prohibitive to feed every log that you possibly can generate to your SIM. The problem with that is when you start considering the artificial intelligence, the machine learning algorithms, when you start pruning logs, you really are inhibiting the amount of data that this algorithm is going to base its learning on, right? You're pruning its training data. And when you do that, that flies in the face of artificial intelligence, in my opinion. I equate that to trying to teach my 5-year-old how to read and write, but I'm not going to teach her 5 letters of the alphabet, right? It's going to be very hard for her to learn how to read and write if I leave those 5 out. And that's kind of what I'm equating it to when you are forced to prune the amount of logs that you are feeding your artificial intelligence SIM. The beautiful thing about this offering or this cost model is it is everything that I can possibly point. If it is a system generating logs, I'm pointing it to my Google Chronicle SIM. I'm not worried about the amount of money it's going to cost because I don't have to worry about that. And just when you start doing that, you just create a much broader spectrum on which that artificial intelligence algorithm is going to learn or contextualize the environment it finds itself alive in.
I agree.
Well, thank you much, Paul. Thanks, JD. I appreciate your time up here. And we appreciate Defense One allowing us the opportunity to come up and have the panel. We have overrun, but we had some comms issues, so we went a little long. So, but thank you very much. And beat Army.